Based on this series, and I know some of the names are familiar, and so I know your repeats from our very first session with Dr. Lakeisha Johnson on January 11th. So I thank you for returning, twice, or three times, I should say. So, again, we welcome you. The beauty in recording this is we're finding that folks do go into the recordings and view the recordings, even if they haven't been able to be on in the evening. So thank you again for joining us in person. My name is Nicole Kopko. I'm from Patton Central, and my areas of focus are for our initiatives are literacy, leadership, and law. And I'd like to say I have all the alliteration because they all start with L. So, but it is my honor and pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Toriel Herman. And I'm just going to run through her short bio real quick. But Toriel joins us from Williams Valley School District, where she's currently the Director of Student Services. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Toriel's background. I wanted to call you Tori. Toriel's background, because she has a really diverse background that she brings to the lens of leadership, and certainly to looking at the integrating and exploring diverse children's literature. So Toriel's experience includes she was the elementary school counselor for Northern Lebanon School District, and that was Carlisle area school district, correct, Toriel? If I'm saying that correct.
I was an elementary school counselor at Carlisle area school district, and Carlisle area school district, and Northern Lebanon School District.
Oh, right, at the same time. That's right. So she split her time between two different districts. She did that for 6 years. So she, really can help us to explore that lens of both, typical development as well as, students with disabilities. She started at Williams Valley School District as the coordinator of student services from July to October, and then was promoted to Director of Student Services starting in November. She has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology at University of Pittsburgh, a Master's of Science in Counseling at Psychology at Chatham University, a Postmaster's in School Counseling at Gwynedd Mercy University, and a doctorate in Special Education at Slippery Rock. She's been married for 7 years, has one son, Trayan, yes, got it, who is 4, 2 dogs, Tiana and Thor, and then there are many doxies, how cute. And her husband is also Director of Special Ed and has worked in education for 9 years. So welcome, Toriel. We're so glad you joined us. I'm going to start presenting the PowerPoint, but before I do, I know Heather put in the chat for you the link to our Padlet, and I really encourage you, not just to go on just tonight, but to continue to explore the Padlet, because we oftentimes, if we find things or, we come into contact with new things that kind of fit into the Padlet, we make sure and get them into the Padlet. So this is session 3. So again, anything that we're going to look at today is going to be in this particular column, if you will, of presuming competence for session 3. There are 2 handouts in here, so I want to call your attention to those handouts. The strategies for presuming competence, which we're going to talk about, as well as infusing disabilities into curriculum document. And I thought I did not. Okay, I will be putting it in later, but I do have a publication that we're going to be sharing as well. So let me do a new share and I can pull up the PowerPoint. Oh, and I should mention to my colleagues, Sherry Hartman from Patton East, as well as Heather Paremba from Patton West are joining us as well. So thank you, Sherry and Heather. So as we look at tonight's focus, we look at presuming competence, but I loved this article. So if you didn't have a chance to read the article on what are windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors, if you remember, Dr. Lakeisha Johnson shared that with us during the first session when her title was I See Me in What I Read. And this article just really resonates with me because it's about mirrors help you. So a mirror into reading would be like see me in what I read. Like that would be a reflection of me. And it's so important for kids to have access to books that they can see themselves in, because, books help expand our understanding and our information about the world around us. And sliding glass doors, that resonated with me, because that's when you can open the door and enter a different world that you may or may not know about, or different, you can explore different things in that book. And then the windows would be that you can look through the window and get a peek into somebody else's world. And that's kind of how that went. But really what we want to talk about tonight is, along with I see me in what I read, and having these different perspectives of children's literature, we also want to make sure we're presuming competence in the students that we have in our classrooms. And we do that, a step in doing that would be to eliminate the ableism attitude. And we're really going to help explore or navigate and define what that means when we what ableism is and what it means, and how it can certainly interfere with that idea of presuming competence. So I'm going to turn it over to Toriel, and she's going to talk a little bit about what it means to presume competence.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Really excited to be here to share with you and kind of share my experience and things, coming from my lens as a school counselor, and then working really in special education. So first, just kind of talking about the lens we're coming from in that presuming competence, just so we all kind of have that basic understanding of, what we're talking about when we are presuming competence. And it's really, I think foundational that we believe that all students can learn, that they are able to learn, and that we should be teaching them. So when we're looking at ableism, it's really an attitude towards a disability, that we are devaluing the disability. We're looking at it as a negative. It's a negative attitude that is similar to racism, similar to sexism. It is looking at those disabilities as something that holds the students back, that we think maybe they can't learn this, or they're not able to do things. It is a form of discrimination. It excludes people who have disabilities. Some attitudes that we kind of attribute with this is, it's better to walk than roll. It's better to speak than sign. It's better to read print, than read Braille. And it's really important to reflect on our own preconceived notions about people with disabilities, and what are we attributing to those disabilities. Again, it's kind of this false idea that disabled people are less than, that they are inferior, when in reality, a disability is just another way of being, another way of a mind to think, another way of a body to be. It's not something that we look at as a barrier for other people. So, if we kind of look a little bit about through the history of disabilities, and, how people have been affected by those, it's definitely very negative. People with disabilities, they were punished. They were thought to have, something that, we wanted to steer clear of. We didn't want to be around that. We didn't want to catch it, things like that. People with disabilities oftentimes earn less money. I can reflect, in a personal story. When my husband was going through his master's program, there was a student in his program who was in a wheelchair. It was maybe her third master's that she was working on, because she just wanted to continue getting higher and higher education in order to get a job. And again, she was being held back. There was this notion that because she was in a wheelchair, she wasn't able to perform, the job duties. And this was in education. She was getting her master's in special education, and it was her third master's degree that she was pursuing. you know, in order to kind of combat that barrier that people were assuming of her, that she couldn't perform job duties. And just something to kind of think about, you know, in terms of, you know, the ableism and the ableist mindset is just reflecting on our own vocabulary. You know, I know we're walking through the hallways in a high school, how many times you hear somebody say, oh, that's lame, or, you know, some of these other terms that we need to reflect on when we're working with our students, that is ableist language. So we want to take some strategies for presuming competence and kind of addressing that ableism. So if you take a look, here are some strategies for presuming competence. You know, if there's any that you guys think kind of jump out to you, that you've used yourself in your own practice, if you've seen other people using it, or even in the opposite, you know, have you seen these done in the opposite way, where we are actually using ableism and having those negative attitudes? And maybe it's not on purpose, maybe it's just something that we're used to as routine, but really trying to reflect on what can we do to presume competence and combat that ableism within our own practice. So I think one that jumps out to me most is, you know, asking permission to share information. You know, don't just assume that, you know, there's information that you have that you want to give to others. You know, just having those conversations of, is it okay if I share information? But any others that, you know, if you're looking through this list that kind of jump out, you know, supporting communication, listening openly, teaching peers and others, teaching your students, teaching, you know, your coworkers, how to communicate and how to talk about disabilities. But if anyone wants to share, you can take the floor and just kind of reflect on some of these strategies.
You can just go ahead and unmute if you'd like.
I was looking at some of them and I can think of an incident, and I'm a special education teacher, and I had a 4th grade student's parent say, oh, please don't bring attention to that goal because it'll just make him anxious. I'm like, and my first instinct was to like question the parent, but it's the student's goal. It was a behavior goal for making sure that he could get to the classroom by himself. But the parent didn't want him to do it on his own. Like, but it was a behavior goal so that he could be independent. And along with that, as you were saying, Dr. Herman, it's that ableism in that we're holding him back, because once I did say it to him, he's like, oh, I'm going to do it 5 out of 5 times. And then he knew what was expected of him, and the goal's now gone because he's mastered it. So I think sometimes we don't give them enough credit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I was just gonna share that I guess I could turn my video on and be a little more personable. I'm a reading specialist, and I often have the conversation about how beneficial it is for students to have that exposure to tier 1 instruction, because I think sometimes some of our students are spending a little bit too much time sheltered because they do have specific, you know, need specially designed instruction. That doesn't mean they don't benefit from academic like expectations of grade level material. So that resonated with me.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, all students should have, you know, the right to learn and the right to access, you know, that academic content. content, like you said. All right, we can keep going.
Okay,
this
so now.
this next slide, yep, is going to be an activity for us all.
Yep. So let me just talk through what we're going to do for this activity because it is a little bit different. And I apologize, I had to move. So what we're going to do is there are these prompts, these questions on the slide, as you can see. Why is understanding ableism and why is understanding ableism and presuming competence important to all educators? And why is it important for everyone? And so we're going to watch a video. And as we're watching that video, I want you to, focus in on those two prompts and just jot down in the chat what you're thinking of. It could be one word, it could be a phrase, it could be something that really, sticks with you and helps you to understand, what's going on here. So let me just click on this video. Can you guys see that okay? How's the volume? Okay.
We cannot hear it, Nicole.
I'll start it over if I need to. How about now?
It's good.
Okay, thank you.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the
Oh. I can't click on the chat.
merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter. But I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we would take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, each other, and for that we have each other. And we will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Oh, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. Thank you for taking me out.
Okay. So I was not able to click on the chat. I found that out when you're recording and watching a video, you can't click on the chat. So let me just go to the chat and Toriel and I can.
I
quickly
don't know. I don't know if everybody heard at the end of the video when she's walking him to the car, she says, "Thank you for taking me out." I
Yeah.
love that line.
Yeah, that really hit home with me because it's like, it was about him taking her on a date. Yeah, that was great. So I see perception shapes reality, and what we focus on is what we will see. I see love. Nice. You guys are gonna make me cry. When I broke my elbow, I learned from a friend who is abled with one arm how to take care of myself until I had to use it both again. Oh my God, I can't read these. Somebody else needs to read them.
Listen, I feel like instead of chat alert, you should have put tissue alert. Like I
Yeah.
was unprepared for the emotion of your little video. Just saying.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is a very good good video of pure love and presuming competence in someone. Part of presuming also requires providing necessary accommodation. This is how so many of my students feel. I work with all students who have language-based learning difference, and reading is hard. A lot of my students have very negative experiences. Yep. And they feel like they're dumb and not as good as other kids. They're also because of this. But the work is so hard, and it's so wonderful to see them succeed. Yeah, absolutely, I hear you. I love the 2020 updates. The person first patent. Oh yeah, we actually have this in this presentation. Yes, thank you. And I sometimes think we focus on what they see too. Yeah. So any other, if you want to unmute, please feel free to unmute. We're just gonna go right into the next slide. If you're ready to move on, we can do that. Let me share my screen again. Any other final thoughts for that video?
Real quick, I had a student that, for the longest time had been saying, "I'm not smart. I can't do this. I can't do this." And we did an assignment, it was like last week. And she's like, "Oh, I'm smart. I got this." I'm like, you now have the skills. You always had the skills. You just needed to find that confidence.
Absolutely.
And the smile that she had from ear to ear, the shoulders were back. And she just kind of looked at me like, I did it. It was really cool to see her ownness of her ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point.
And what I think, that's a great point. And again, I think it's that mindset, right? When we think about ableism, we're thinking about what they can't do. We're focusing on those negatives rather than focusing on what they can do. Again, it's presuming that competence. They can learn, they can, all students can learn, all students can do this. And, if we come at it with that lens, we're not limiting, when we come in at, there's this disability, they can't do this, they can't do that. We're limiting them based on something that may or may not even be true and accurate. So, focusing on and shifting that mindset for those students and for people working with those students on, they can do it, assume they can do it. And, that's a powerful thing, I think, for not only the students, but people working with them as well.
I think you're so right. I had a student last year that was a retention student, and they felt like they couldn't do it because it was their second year. And they actually got to the point where they were hitting themselves in the head with frustration. And we are a pretty strong structured literacy school. We're pretty far on our journey. And, we were doing the whole say the word, tap the sounds, write the sounds. And it was so successful for this child. And they were jumping out of their seat with joy because they finally believed in themselves that they could do it. And they finally felt like they, as someone said in the chat, they weren't dumb. Like they starting to believe that about themselves, and structured literacy started to make them feel like they were smart. So it just proved the fact that structured literacy can work and it can make every kid a reader. So it was a really powerful moment for me too. And anytime they got frustrated, I'm like, you can do this. Remember, we did it already. And they would smile and go back and do it.
Nice. Great point. Yeah, that, with the passing of the legislation, the structured literacy movement, the science of reading movement, it's just like, this is our time. This is our time to acknowledge that kids can learn to read, through using structured literacy, which is, it's catchy. Heck, I like to do it. I enjoy doing it. So certainly kids are enjoying it. And they're, I always say my famous saying, if anybody has known me for a while, and I've said from day one, I said, success breeds success. If we can, show if kids are successful, they're going to want to be more successful, so that builds. And that's what I'm hearing from you all and your stories is it's the motivation, it's the drive. I'm going to keep going because I know I can do this rather than, I can't do this. This is too hard for me. So great job. All right. So we're going to go to the next slide. And Toriel, do you want to share about this one?
Yeah. So again, I think, when we look at that ableism, one of the things we can do is teach all students about disabilities. And, we want to focus on that disability awareness. And, there's some suggestions up here, do activities that show students are alike and how they are alike and different. Teach students how to interact with people with disabilities, talk about disabilities in general, teach what it is like to have different disabilities through hands-on activities, celebrate the abilities of people with disabilities. And I think in schools and just in general, we have a lot more of these, you have the autism awareness days, you have, all of these different strategies that you can use and implement in the classroom to make everyone feel included, and also just to boost awareness. Something that you can also do in your own personal practice is think about your classrooms or your environment. What are you doing to kind of create a learning space that kind of removes those barriers, rather than looking at it as this student has these barriers, this student has these barriers. What are the barriers you can remove within your classroom? What can you do to make things more accessible? What can you do to show that awareness for other students in your classroom? Do you have inclusive posters, inclusive books, what is it that you can do just to, eliminate that ableism in that model. So there's also, I believe, a handout that's in the Padlet, the 17 ways to infuse disabilities into curriculum across the age levels. You can take a look at that. There's some really, really great examples on how to put it into practice. Just having, adults come into the classrooms and, talk about their lives and their experiences gives students a chance to interact with adults with disabilities. There's plenty of, movies and clips and books to incorporate in your lessons and in your curriculum. So if, when you have a chance, make sure you take a look at that handout that is in the Padlet as well.
Yeah, great point. And I also want to share, because this was just announced, I don't know if any of you were at the PD conference last week, but I do want to share, do a different share real quick, because I just want to take you back to the Padlet again. And I want to just show you that this announcement came out last week at the PD conference. So there is going to be a grant opportunity. The Pennsylvania Disability Inclusive Curriculum Pilot Grant is going to be, the grant application is going to be offered in mid-March. It is a 3-year grant, and applications will be accepted from March of 2023 till May 15th of 2023. And then the pilot begins in the fall of this year. So that's exciting news. You can see, if you want to find more information about the legislation that was also passed in July regarding the inclusive curriculum pilot. You can read all about it if you scan that QR code on right on that announcement. So I just wanted to make you aware that we're really excited that grant will launch within the coming weeks. So we're excited for that. Okay, so that's that. And then Sherry, did you say you posted, or is it on here somewhere? Or maybe
Yes, I did post the link. Do you guys see it? If not, I can post it again.
I probably needed to refresh, Sherry. You're good. Let me
Okay.
just to this. Where's my
Let me
little?
know. I can repost it if we need to.
Yep, I didn't refresh, so that's, well, I don't see it still.
Okay, I'll redo it.
Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna hit that slide next, so and put folks in breakout rooms. So just let me go to stop share and all right. So again, I encourage you and your district to share with your district that grant opportunity is coming up and to get on board. Because what's nice about this legislation has passed. So this will be a part of all schools moving forward. But if you get in on the ground level during the grant, you get some funding to kind of start things up. If you're, you can ramp up what you're currently doing, or you can start, laying the groundwork for good, really positive implementation. So that will be helpful. So the next part about this that we're going to do, and Sherry, did you post that link also in the chat, Sherry, as well? Okay, well, anyhow, we have a patent publication. Sherry's going to put it on the pilot. She's also going to make sure that you have access to it. I just encourage you. This is the one that Sharon in the sorry. Well, this is the publication that Sharon Janosic in the chat was mentioning, that this used to be called Person First Language or something like that, but it was revamped in 2020, this publication from Patent, and it's communicating with and about people with disabilities. So it's a great resource to have to kind of remind you of the lens of, again, presuming competence and in your students and eliminating that idea of ableism in your everyday to-day lives. So we're gonna, we do have enough folks on the call today, so we're gonna put you in breakout rooms. This is also the opportunity, if you recall, from the previous sessions, we do a book share opportunity where you can talk about books that you use in your classroom. But I really like you to focus on the books that you use in your classroom, even if you didn't bring a book tonight. You know, you want to look at it through the lens of that communicating with and about people with disabilities, and then reflect on your classroom library and or the book that you brought tonight. And how do you use that during instruction? And are you presuming competence with the books you select or the literature that you use during instruction? Or is this an area that you would like to cultivate into your practice more? And then when we come back, we're going to debrief. So right now, what time is it? 7:06. So let's come back together in 20 minutes. And we'll have about 5 minutes to close out. Well, no, I can't do math. Forget that. We'll do 18 minutes. That will give us a little bit more time to close out the session. So we would like a couple folks to share it. So you're thinking of these questions, you're reflecting on either your classroom library if you didn't bring a book along tonight, and then we'll come back together in about 18 minutes. So I'm going to set up breakout rooms.